Welcome to the live stream. I am Keith. It is good to be back. I've been flying around the studio trying to get everything going. What have I done to myself? I've gone from combining this little puppy, right? The ATEM Mini Pro with my extreme ISO to a whole nother level of chaos. Let's see, channel 3. I'm still learning these channels. There you go. Get that microphone out of the way just a little bit, but there you go. They are hooked up. Even that got my wireless microphone going. We'll set that over there. Crazy, crazy days in Life Journey Production Studio. So welcome. I see lots of you in the chat. A couple people emailed me today and said they were not going to be able to make it. And so that's really cool. Those of you that have connected to me via my website, lifejourneyproductions.com, and the contact page, that's really cool. So I just want to give you guys an update as we say hi, and then we'll jump into the chat. I think I have the chat working, even though you probably saw it popping on during the intro video, because I was testing a new macro that I created and it shut off my HyperDeck. So I'm now manually turning on and off the key that lets the chat pop on there. Let's just start by saying this. Thank you so much for all of the kind things some of you said in the chat. I did have an emergency family deal last week that took me out of the studio for Tuesday night, so I apologize for that. I was doing my walk. I walk about 5 times a day. I'm up to about 2 miles, going to do more than that as we flow over into the next month. But as I was on the walk, I got a phone call from a family member, finding out about another family member that was now in hospice care. So I decided on Monday morning that my wife and I were going to go on a trip. And so we went up and picked up my parents north of Coeur d'Alene and then drove to Seattle. So from the bottom of the state all the way, let's see, we'll do this all the way up to above Spokane and then all the way over to Seattle University District, and then reverse that, got home. Oh, let's see, can I do it? Yeah, got home. Well, see, the Tri-Cities would be right about here in the state of Washington. Got home at about 12:05 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So I was driving when I'd normally be streaming. So I apologize for not being with you guys live. So, okay, let me just look in the chat because I should be asking some of the key things like, is everything working right? And it looks like my levels are good. My mouse is being stubborn here. There we go. Let's go through here. I see Freddie's here tonight. Let me just look through the notes. Let me know if everything sounds good, and then I'll go back through here and say some highs. Yeah, I see, Joe, that you said that sorry about the hospice. Yeah, that's never good news. And as we go through life, when we hear that we have a close family member in hospice, so there's my note to just let you guys be reminded that I do have subscriber-only chat on. So if you are live with me tonight, please hit the like button and also subscribe, and then you can chat within a minute. You can join the conversation. I'm not doing that so that you have to subscribe my channel. I'm doing that so that we keep people from jumping on here for obviously no reason and then blowing up the chat and then leaving again. So if you subscribe, you can chat in 1 minute. And those of you that have subscribed already, thank you so much for all the subscribers. Let's go ahead and say some highs here. Let me get caught back up. Lots of things happen in the chat. Freddie said hi earlier today because anytime I make my still image ready and live. People can actually go in and already chat. I don't always respond to those because I'm not always paying attention until I'm ready to go live. Thank you so much, DJ, for that little nice note. It is good to be back, as I said earlier. So again, hi, Freddie. Hi, DJ Ware. Let's see. Hello, Tony. It's good to have you back with me as I'm back. Kind of a bummer if no one's here, right? Thank you. I like the new cup as well. And Dennis Barker, thank you from Newcastle, UK, for being here as well. I think, Joe, thank you for joining me as well. Tech for Fun. Let's see here. Not missing anybody, I don't think. So let me kind of put together a little idea for tonight, right? So I did spend probably a couple days, maybe 2.5 days, 3 days, rewiring the studio. Obviously, I didn't have to completely rewire everything, but I did have to solve some problems, which we're going to talk about tonight. If you would like to see the still image again, the still image is this still right here. If you'd like to see that and study that, I will put a link in the chat tonight for that, and it'll be in the notes as well, so you can check that out. That's a pretty good description of what I've done, even though there's not enough paper on one page to put everything, mainly how I do all the splitting to different monitors, but I put really good notes on there. And I would be happy to answer those questions tonight. So I want to talk about integrating 2 extreme ISOs, because I don't know anybody else so far that I've seen on YouTube, and I haven't done a lot of digging. So if you find someone, please email me and let me know. But combining 2 extreme ISOs, I've already combined the ATEM Mini Pro with the extreme ISO. So I had kind of an idea of some of the challenges. I could have gone to a rack-mounted device, but I like to have everything on my desk. I do a lot of training on the Stream Decks. The ATEM Mini Pro is going to stay in here, it will also eventually go in Studio B. But as I do some consulting, I need to have those devices to share with people how they work. And I can simply plug in that ATEM Mini Pro into a CAT cable into my network, and then take one HDMI out of it, put one HDMI input in it, and then use it for a consult within a few minutes. But eventually that's going to be in Studio B, streaming into my live stream here in the studio, so I could get up, do a short little 2-minute video, and then be in the Studio B, and then do the same thing and come back, because there are some things I want to do in Studio B, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So kind of an update, what's happening there, what our ideas are, when that's going to take place, is it going to take place? But I have officially combined 2 extreme ISOs. So that means that I could be tonight, I'll go ahead and hit the record button. I could be recording all the ISO tracks for both decks. I'm not to that point yet where I have hooked up an SSD drive, and I use these Samsung scan discs. They work great for me. I've even recorded on these streaming HyperDeck High, and I haven't had any problems, but I don't know that these are recommended on Blackmagic site. So do yourself a favor. If you haven't already purchased those SSD drives, just go ahead and do that. So let me go in here again. I'm going to just make sure I catch up on the comments before we get too much further here. Let me turn chat back on the air here again. Let's see. Yeah, and I think I'll put that up there. That's a good welcome for you. Dennis Barker, Freddie said hi. Some others have said hi as well. Thank you, Freddie. I appreciate it. I am up to 1,610 subscribers. I still have some videos to edit in my Stream Deck Plus series with all these trips out of town that I've had in the last couple of weeks. I have missed 2 live streams out of the last 4 weeks. So And those both times I have been on the road. So because of that, I have a lot of catching up to do, a lot of editing to do, and I'm hoping to get back to editing that Stream Deck series. Have it all set up, have the timeline created. I just have to go through and do all the final touches on part 4. But if you haven't checked out my Stream Deck Plus series, there's a playlist right here on the channel. And I will make sure to copy a link to that in the description later tonight. You can come back tomorrow and check that out, or just go into my YouTube channel and check it out. I also just wanted to say thanks again for some of you that said some nice things during the trip to Seattle. Those of you who have the ability to back channel me. Just so you all know, I have a very close family member dealing with hospice. They're very hush-hush about it. Most of my family did not know that they're at this level. And then the phone call came last weekend. Then I got the phone call. And so we had a great trip, great time in Seattle. Got to be extended time with my father and my stepmom with Shannon, my wife. And we got a chance to be in the car literally for 16 hours plus meals together, hotel one night. So lots of quality time. I was going to go up there for a trip this last weekend and then be back last night, but we didn't need to do that because we had all of that time together last weekend. So took this weekend off for travel, but my wife is off call for the first time in 10 years. What does that mean? That means there's no birth calls that are going to happen. So she purposely took time off to rest, to get ready for springtime. And so while she is off, I will be doing some trips out of town, and we're trying to plan those Saturday, Sunday, Monday, so I can be back for Tuesdays live. And plus I have clients. So anyway, that's an update on the trip last week. And again, sorry again for missing being with you live. So thank you. Covet your prayers if you are so inclined. And this is for my father's brother. So you do that. That would be much appreciated by his family. Thank you, Tony, for that, for letting everybody know to hit the like button. It's good to have you here, TVJ. And yeah, it sounds like your plans got changed. So it's good to have you with me tonight. Yeah, and you did notice that, Freddie. Good job. No prizes for that tonight. But I do have Batman and Robin, my new poster. No empty wall space in here. So it's actually in front of my rack on the wall, which is, I don't think is that good looking. So I put it leaned up against the rack. So that's my new Batman and Robin poster. And I even have an MC light on it right there. So lots of lights to do what you see in the background, even a couple lights up there. I've actually Velcroed now. So that light right by my thumb is Velcroed on the top there. And then there's another light right there on the next shelf. Let me get out of the way here. That is Velcroed as well. So trying to spruce things up in the studio. And also planning some changes. I have my notepad here. This is where I wrote my notes and spent some heavy brain time trying to decide what I was going to put in what inputs. And we are going to talk about that tonight. So please stay tuned. And hopefully here really quick, because I like to get started by 1:15 and we're already running late. Yeah, my studio is probably looking a little bit like the Starship Enterprise, especially with all of those buttons. So I appreciate that comment. That's cute. Sounds like everything's okay tonight. Sounding good. That's good to know. I saw those earlier. So thank you guys for keeping me posted on that. And yeah, DJ, I do agree. The MC lights are so handy. I have an app here on my phone, though I think a couple of them disconnected. But I can go here on my phone. If I can find the app, what page is that thing on? And occasionally they change the icons, so I was just looking in here. Yeah, it's the Sidus Link app. So I click on that, and then I can click on my lights, and it's loading right now. And then here are all my lights. So it's really nice to have these aperture apps and the ability to control lights. I can control color, temperature, brightness, and all of that. And I have 5 lights in here. I have one over here behind my Technique Batmobile, which I don't normally show that shelf. I think it's in camera 2 here. Right there, right there is a red light. And then, like I said, I have 2 on the shelf, one over here, and there's another one somewhere. I can't even remember it's at. Hopefully I turned it on. Because a lot of times I'll leave those off until just before we go live so I can save batteries. The batteries typically will last a show if all goes well. So, and it doesn't always. Occasionally one of those will be dead if I get long-winded. So anyway, okay, so let's get into the show tonight. 2 things. One, we want to look at the Extreme Deck, Extreme ISO, ATEMs, excuse me. And I want to give you an update on Studio B tonight. Maybe talk just a little bit about the Stream Deck Plus. I do have the icons. Let's see if I can sneak this out of here. Got headphones in the way. What happened here? Okay, set those down. But here is the Stream Deck Plus, and I actually have a profile loaded now that lets me do editing in Adobe Premiere Pro. And so I do plan on covering that in depth in my Stream Deck Plus series. And I just love the idea that I have all of these profiles, all of these things, so I can do audio transitions, I can do cuts, and I'm using it more and more. I use the scroll jog feature a lot. So I just wanted to mention that Stream Deck Plus is really a cool device. That's going to stay in here. And then I have a Stream Deck XL that I use mainly control my lights during the day when I have consults, but that's probably going to go to Studio B unless I buy another Stream Deck. And so lots of things happening here. I wanted to pop up a couple pictures here just to dive in to tonight. So let's see if I can find the slideshow. Where are you? Slideshow. Tap that again. Well, come on. Don't be saying you won't go. Seriously. Are my macros not working? Let's try this. Okay. That box works. Let's try the slideshow box again. There we go. I don't know what was going on, but hit play on a macro and it doesn't play. So as you can see, this is my main extreme ISO, and you can see the labels there. This is not a live image. I took a shot of that. I have a slide up there. I want to just cover these real quick, but I want to go over from left to right. So I've almost always had camera 1 is my EOS R, and I can cut to that right now. That's the EOS R, and I've used that for other streams, and occasionally I use that with my clients. I occasionally reposition it for videos when I want to shoot down sideways on my desk. So that's always been kind of in channel 1. Channel 2 has always been this video right here, which is just my main camera. And so that is the main 2 inputs. And now instead of having input 3 be a program out from Extreme number 1, and let's just drop that slide in here. So this is the new Extreme ISO, and you can see that it's filled because I can use every channel in that, and I actually kept one switch in, or shoot, not switches, yeah, switch, right? I have a number of these and retired a bunch, and if I've kept one from all the switches that I was using to do 2 in and 1 input. And so I still have one of these, and it's currently in channel 4, and that lets me switch. So basically with these switches, these are by Techole, Techole. I have a bunch of these. I need to sell them now because they're not being used. But so you have the one HDMI out, so that can go in an input right there. And then you can have 2 other inputs, and then you just switch between input 1 and input 2. And I had labels on them, so I knew what they were. So I have one of these left that lets me bring the program in that you're seeing. So this is the program that you're all watching. And then I also can bring in my streaming bridge. So I'll switch to streaming bridge when I'm going to use Studio B or use my streaming bridge. And if you don't know what streaming bridge is, it's basically a device that Blackmagic Design created to be able to stream from, instead of going to YouTube, I can actually stream through a network inside or outside if you want to open up a hole for people to get in and you get out. But I use this inside my network. And so this could be in the garage hooked up to my network, and I could stream directly back to the studio. Now, I can't stream to 2 locations. Technically, I guess I could hook the USB-C out into OBS and stream to some other location. But I can't use OBS to stream to a streaming bridge. I've got to stream directly from the stream or the Extreme itself or the ATEM Mini Pro. And so instead of like streaming to YouTube like I am right now, I would then choose the Stream Deck, and then I'll bring that into that input. So input number 4 that you see right there on the screen could be either or. Now, I had a lot of switches before. I still have 2 left in the studio. I use one of these to switch between program and my streaming bridge. And that's again into channel 4 of my new Extreme ISO. But I also have one of these to choose between my HyperDeck 1, so I can see it in my monitor up here, or HyperDeck 2, so I can see it in my monitor. So I'm only using up 1 input in my BenQ, but I have 2 things I can send to it. So that just helps me out. And again, I have to choose, do I want to see my HyperDeck 1 or my HyperDeck 2, because I do have 2 HyperDecks in my studio. So back to this first slide, and then we'll come back to the one that you're looking at right now, because I want to cover these next 2 inputs, which are coming out of the outputs of Stream Deck or Extreme ATEM Extreme ISO number 2. So again, this Stream Deck, why do I keep saying Stream Deck? Extreme. We're not talking about the Stream Deck anymore. So my 2 Extreme ISOs, the new one has 2 HDMI outputs that I'm using to bring in 2 inputs into my original deck. And you can see it right there. It says Extreme 1 and Extreme 2. That also means that I could play from my HyperDeck or my Shuttle, and they're both in this new Extreme ISO. So how do I do that? We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. That's one of the problems that I needed to solve, and I have it solved. So we'll talk about how to do that. So again, this is Stream Deck number 2. So let's go back to my original one. So you have camera 1 to my left, camera 2. Then you have, oh wait, wrong slide. Apologize. Camera 1 right here, right? Camera 2 right here. Then I have an input coming in from my regular Stream Deck. Let me make sure my Canon 5D3 is still on. And so right now I'm going to switch to that, and you're going to see my Canon 5D Mark III, which is in another Extreme. So let me switch to that. So there is my overhead camera down on my desk, and that is actually this channel right here, but you notice it's not lit up, and that's the secret sauce that I discovered as I was doing my research. I don't have to bring it in that way. I can actually assign it through the outputs. So I'll illustrate that to you right now. Let's close a couple things here, and let me cover this for you. You switch to a different view here. I'm out of practice. So because you have two outputs in your extreme ISO or your extreme, you have the ability to either switch output number one. So again, HDMI out number one. Remember, if you have an ATEM Mini Pro HDMI version, right, you only have one HDMI out. If you have the new SDI version, then you have two SDI outs. But let's just pretend you only have one on a Pro. Then you have a little matrix on the front of your ATEM Mini Pro, and you can switch what inputs going out that output. So what I've done, and I'll go up here and change software so you guys can see this. I'm going to disconnect from that one, and I'll connect to the other extreme ISO. So what I've done is I have these two outputs. Output number one is assigned to my Canon 5D Mark III. Now that comes into my input number 3 on my main extreme. And then if you look here to output number 2, it's my Apple TV. And I'm not actually tethered yet, but let's go ahead and tether real quick. So I will tether to this and wait for it to come live here. There it is. And then we'll go into Filmic Pro, which gives you a clean HDMI out. And so now I could just simply reassign Supersource. Let me go to box 2 and reassign this. I can do this through Mix Effects. I can do it through the software. I'm going to do it through the software right here, right now, so you guys can see it. I'm going to go up to Supersource, and I'm going to go to box 2. And now I'm going to choose Extreme Out number 2. And now I have my mobile cam. So I have two HDMI outs coming out of this one, going into input number 3 and 4. And now I've assigned the output 1 to my Canon 5D Mark III. So I don't even have to use this matrix, even though you can see my HyperDeck is live, because one of these buttons is always going to be live. But it wouldn't matter if I push these buttons, you're still going to see right now camera 3, because I have routed it through the matrix. Now I can also change what's in number 1. So let's switch back to let's see, let's switch back to this. And then I am going to change, let's see, I want to go back here. Let's go back to box 2, and I'm going to change it back to 1. So now watch. I'm just pushing the buttons right here, and I can change the source. So I have two inputs coming out of this device, and I can use this matrix to change what's coming out of channel output 1. But if I want to change what's coming out of input number 2 of that device, then I would have to go up into that software, and I do have it open on my PC, but I'm just going to do it this way so you guys can see it. Then I can go up here to output number 2, and I have to use this matrix right here. So right now I have Apple TV assigned to 2, and I have both assigned there, so I just put it back like I normally have. And I even have a macro set up in here. Let's pull the macros over so you guys can see them. I have a macro right here set up to actually switch to my two normal program outs. So I can open up the software and switch that. And I do keep both softwares open when I'm live, but it's easier to show it to you because I'm not able to show my PC right now because I'm using it to put chat on the air. So I hope that helps you kind of understand what I'm doing. I'm taking the two outputs and I'm bringing it into two inputs, but I can change what goes to those two inputs by just changing what's in the two matrices. So that is one of the tricks. Now, keep in mind, in reality, let's switch cameras here for a minute. In reality, you have three outputs that I've discovered coming out of your Extreme, if you have one. And you say, wait a minute, Keith, I know about the HDMI 1 and HDMI 2. And if you have the new SDI Extremes, they have four outputs. And each one of those can be matrixed to whatever you want them to be within reason, what the choices are inside an Extreme. But the third output you have is program. Now think about it. Whatever I put on the program is live right now. So I can still be moving things around in the outputs in my studio. Like right now, I'm watching myself in the program on my monitor, and I could change that to something else. Like right back here, I can change that to program out as well. I can change it to camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, because I have a matrix back there. And I do that because if I'm shooting over on the table, I can make this the program. So I can see it from the table because this whole TV rotates. And so, and you see me occasionally when I want to see what I'm doing on my desk, I'll change it to my desk view. And then you can see that back here. And I'm trying to rectify that so that always back here when I want it to be is multi-view. And so I have a third input to this monitor that I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to use, because this MSI monitor has three inputs. So I have one coming in just from program, so I can switch that right now. And it's going to change all the cameras in the room, so that's a little bit of a hassle. But so that's program all the time, and that's an HDMI input, and that's the same thing I'm seeing on everything. But I would like to be able to keep multi-view on there all the time, and that would only be if I left multi-view alone on here all the time. So that's the challenge, because multi-view is not static. It's part of a matrix, and you can change what's there. So I know there's a lot here, and it's a lot to digest. Let's just take a minute and dive into the chat. Let me pull this back over and turn chat on the air. And let me just look here for a second. So yeah, Joe, I've heard a little bit about mobile streaming, and I have a couple devices that I helped find and purchase for the local RV dealership, but they have SIM cards in them and really high-end antennas. I have not taken them on the road. They're used for off-site shows, so they set up trailers in a parking lot like a mall, and then they can do mobile paperwork right there from the mall, as well as printing and all that, because almost all of their sales software is cloud-based, and so they can do that. So we had a Cradle Point there, and then we had some other devices, and one had one SIM card and the other one had other SIM cards from another network, but they were not bonded. And so we are going to look into some kind of bonded device eventually for my business. So we'll see if I get to that phase, but I do know that Starlink makes some of those. Yeah, let me just talk about this for a second, because I almost forgot. So here's the retired switches. You guys will be happy to know. There's two more. So I have 5 retired switches, and you can see I had labels on. Well, where's the one with the label? I've peeled it off of most of these. No, I guess the labels are off of all of those. I have my little label maker here. I highly recommend. I borrowed this so many times from my wife. She bought a new one for her business and she donated this one for me because I take it all the time for labeling my studio. Mainly, this is for the devices that I need to keep track of and the cables attached to them, even though I reuse cables all the time. And I actually retired about, I think, 7 HDMI cables, but I also invested in some new devices. So I picked this up. This is another splitter. It's a 4-way splitter. And so this is kind of set aside for Studio B. And I've been slowly purchasing parts and pieces for Studio B, but it's a work in progress for sure. Let me get back in here to my slideshow. Want to keep talking through this. Well, let's just see. Am I missing anything else here? Yeah, goodbye switches. Oh, well, you have some shadow box ready for my little switches. Yeah, well, I probably should mail some of those to you, Joe, being that my confidence monitor I'm using right now, you might be familiar with it. It's called a Free World monitor. And my BenQ is moving to Studio B because it has audio levels, and I have audio levels on my monitor just in my peripheral right here. And so I've gone from a 5-inch monitor to a 7-inch monitor. And thanks to your donation a while back, it's in use tonight. And you may have caught it when I went to the mobile cam. But if you didn't, just to give Joe a shout out here, let's see, what are you in? Channel 4. So there it is in all its glory. And you can see I have audio meters right there, just barely off of my peripheral. And so no audio meters on that monitor, but it's quite a bit bigger than my BenQ. So that is a great thing. And I'm excited to be using that finally, thanks to you. Yeah, I have this monitor with 3 inputs, and you'll see that in my diagram. It's an MSI. It's just a 60 up to 60 hertz gaming monitor. And then I have my BenQ. The difference between my BenQ that has 4 inputs, and they make a Dell as well. The Dell doesn't have as good reviews as the BenQ, and these 32-inch BenQs are over $1,000, but it has a matrix built into it, so I can change it to picture-in-picture. So one big 32-inch picture with a small picture in it, and I can put whatever of the 4 inputs I want in there. I can go to 2 side-by-side. I don't have the mount that came with it originally hooked up to it, but it'll also flip. So you could use it for a 2-up, right? So widescreen on top of widescreen. So some people use that, 2 of them side by side. Now you have even a bigger 4 input monitor, and you could actually do 8 with that, but you could do 2 and 2. And then the top left, or if it's one big picture, it's got audio or whatever's in the top left. So I reserve the top left of my BenQ monitor for my HyperDecks. So I've always been able to listen to my HyperDecks play to make sure I have audio before I play a video. So when you're listening to the audio, I don't have to put on my headphones to listen to the audio. It comes through my BenQ monitor, and I keep it turned very low so it's not distracting for me when you guys are watching a video. So again, Freddie's asking a question about 2 ATEMs. So how do you turn on and off the ATEMs, a remote control? Yeah. So I have the 2 ATEMs, and actually had all 3 for a week and a half because I had the Pro hooked up as well. They're in a power supply. It's a monster power supply. It actually cleans up any background noise inside the power, which happens all the time, especially in the Blackmagic design products. They actually kind of designed them to be rack mounted originally. And so I believe they've got very noisy power supplies. So they're plugged into my monster switch, and I can show that, guys, to you. It's buried, but I'll give you the best view I can here. So it's right down here. We'll move the coffee. And here's all my switches for turning power on and off. But that is the monster power supply right down there. And if I hit that switch that's red, it'll actually turn off the live stream, turn off the show. So both of those are controlled right there, and that cleans up the power. I get less noise floor. And if you know anything about noise, a lot of times it's very quiet noise, but as you add more and more noise, it builds up, and they call it a noise floor, which is like if there was no sound at all, that would be the floor. And if there's like 1 dB of sound, that would be really close to the noise floor. And I'm trying to stay as close to -12 when I'm live streaming. So you can see that noise would be down there, and every time I would talk, you would hear that noise. Now there's still some noise in the preamps of a ATEM. And the only way around that I've discovered is to bypass them altogether. So I could run directly from my camera into HDMI out into a SD converter device, and then bring that in, and then embed audio, which I've done in the past. I'm not doing that right now because I might as well cover this here and now, is because this HOSA switch now has one switch for my speakers, and you can see it right there. One is for ATEM 1, and it comes in right here, right there. Let me get a better view. So that's, man, get this microphone out of the way. That's the input right there. And then the other switch brings audio into this ATEM right there. And then I'm feeding out of the headphone out into mic channel 2, right? Let's flip this around. Mic channel 2 right here. So headphones, then coming from my HOSA switch, this is the headphone out of my new Extreme ISO. So I can feed audio back into the live stream from the other device. Hopefully that didn't make you dizzy, but that's the mobile cam. So I'm feeding audio from the headphone out of the new Extreme ISO into mic channel number 2. And then if I do want to use my wireless mic tonight, it's actually plugged in. Let me get over there first so I won't make you guys super dizzy. It is actually plugged in to channel 2. And so I could turn that on, this channel right here, and that would be feeding the show. And then I'd mute my other mic on the Rodecaster Pro. But I'm not super confident yet that I have all the levels set. That's something that I played with yesterday and had to sort out, how do I drive audio. Now, the only really reason I've needed to drive audio is if I'm using my HyperDeck into the show, because I have one HyperDeck plugged into my main Extreme ISO, and I have two HyperDecks plugged into my new Extreme ISO. One is an HDMI out only HyperDeck Shuttle, because it's only HDMI out and it doesn't have a key channel. So it's just one HDMI out. You can play videos or you can use it as a teleprompter. And then I have my old HyperDeck Studio Mini plugged into channel 7 and 8 in the new Extreme. And my HyperDeck HD Plus is plugged into channel 7 and 8. And they both have to be converted. And you can see on my little still image that there's little converters there. You can see two HyperDecks. The one on the right is the HyperDeck HD Plus, and the one on the left is the HyperDeck Studio Mini, and they both have to go through SDI to HDMI converters, and then one is a fill channel, and the other one is a key channel. And what do I got here? Let's go back to this logo, this view. what do I have here? Nothing going into, sometimes this gets confusing when you're doing a live stream and you're trying, normally after you do it enough time, you know exactly what you're looking for. I'm still reprogramming my brain for that. So let me turn chat back on the air here because I did see one more little chat. And yeah, I have lots of power in the room and it's getting hot right now because I've had it on. Normally I don't have everything on, but today I was doing a lot of testing. So the room got quite hot and I can turn a fan on, but the door is closed to stop the house noise. And I can't open that window, but it's been really windy. And so you guys would hear that. So I'm not going to do that tonight. And Tony is dizzy. Yeah, rightfully so, Tony. This is a dizzying layout, but it's given me 14 inputs. So I can have 14 things coming into my live stream. It's given me more ability to control my outputs just because of what I'm capable of doing. I really needed that second output of the ATEM Mini Pro. I even thought about getting the SDI version, but then everything would have to be converted because my studio, other than my 2 HyperDecks, is almost all HDMI. So that would be like 98% HDMI and 2% SDI. So converting is a lot of money, and I just was not interested in doing that at all. So instead of having all of those switches, which is one more level of thinking, now I know that when I start up in the morning, my startup state for a consult means that I have my Apple TV and my Canon 5D Mark III desk camera always available to me in my main ATEM. So even though I'm giving up those 2 inputs in the first one, I'm not really, right? I'm giving up 2 of all of the inputs of the 16 that would be available. But because I have 2 HDMI outs of that new Stream Deck Extreme ISO, that lets me have my Canon 5D Mark III and my Apple TV. And if you remember, I had both of them in my ATEM Mini Pro. So before I had my Canon 5D Mark III right here. Let's take the cover off. By the way, this is the Decklink Covers. I have 3 of these now. 2 more covers. I ordered a new one, so the nice clear one that's not all scratched up is the new one for the new SDI, and I keep these right next to my subwoofer, between my subwoofer and my desk. But going back here, I had my Camera 3, which is my desk cam over here. I also had my bridge and my HyperDeck. I just, for some reason, felt like I needed to bring my HyperDeck in, which was ridiculous. I don't need to do that. I can bring it into my live streams anytime I want, and I can show it to you because it's already inside channel 7 and 8 on both of these. And then I had a switch to switch between the streaming bridge and the HyperDeck. I had a switch to switch between my PC and my multi-view. I still have my multi-view in the new ATEM Extreme, but I moved the PC into my main out because I got rid of those HyperDecks. I had another HyperDeck hooked up to my main Extreme ISO, and I've moved that HyperDeck now. And it's a backup HyperDeck. I can use it as a secondary video playback device. I could also, if I needed to, I could stream directly to HyperDeck number 2 from it because this camera is split into there. So I can have this camera live on this Extreme, and I can also have it live in the other Extreme. So then I had my Apple TV and my program coming in a switch as well. So I had to switch one of these to get between program and my Apple TV, and now I don't have to hit any switches. And I also set the new Extreme ISO to cut bus. And so how do you do that? Let me show you guys here real quick. So if you go into the software here and you go up to File, Connections, and you hit ATEM Setup, inside this menu, let's see, let's go to this one. This is a new ISO. And so if I go into connections, ATEM setup, right here, I can go between cut bus and program preview right there. And this is my original Extreme. I don't want it cut bus. If I go over here, you can see my other new ISO number 2. And if I click on the same thing and go down here, you can see I have it set to cut bus. What does that mean? That simply means that when I hit a button on the front of my new Extreme ISO, it just cuts. It's no different than if I do this right here. Let's close this. It's no different if I hit cut right here. So if I switch between, let's see, I've got Supersource and my camera. If I hit cut, it just does a hard cut like that. I don't have a program and preview and then have to hit a transition, and it takes the time of doing a transition and then doing a transition back. If I'm changing anything on my Extreme, because I'm not streaming from it, I just want to cut to a different camera view. And in reality, I haven't really been, if you remember, I haven't really been using it, the buttons on the front, because now I'm using the matrix. So I can just simply go inside the matrix and change the output for 1 or 2, and that will change the channel right here, 1 or 2. I cut to that, and it is my overhead camera. I cut to this, and it is my mobile camera, cut back to my laptop. Oh, Supersource here. So if I go up here and switch it, I don't have to have it. Oops, wrong device here. Connection number 2. If I go up here to outputs, I can change it from my Mark III to any one of these inputs. So if I wanted my Shuttle, I can change to my HyperDeck Shuttle. If I want to show the multi-view from my main ATEM, I'll switch that now. And now I have multi-view coming into channel 3. So there you go. There's multi-view in all its glory, and I'm still in the frame. And you can see how I have my multi-view laid out. So again, I love the idea that that matrix means that I can quickly open up the software and assign any 2 inputs from my first Extreme ISO, the new one, to those 2 input number 3 and 4, and then have it in multi-view and all of that. And I do have another multi-view in my new Extreme that I could bring on the air. If I wanted to bring multi-view on, then I would be switching this output to program, because whatever program has, if I turn a key on, it comes on, and then I could bring multi-view in or Supersource in that way by bringing it in program. So a lot to think about, a lot to digest, and it's craziness, but I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun. And if you ever wonder if you're going to get dementia one day when you get older, this kind of work will not let your brain rest long enough to get dementia, most likely. Hopefully, we will see. So I wanted to see if I can get this to work here again. Okay. So again, ATEM Extreme ISO number 1 in my studio is now left to right. Camera 1, camera 2, input 1 or output 1 from my Extreme number 2. Output number 2 is into channel 3. Then I have my laptop, my PC, and my HyperDeck fill and my HyperDeck key for my HyperDeck. So those are the inputs that I have available. So you would think I only have camera 1 and 2 now, my laptop and my PC, and then my HyperDeck that I could bring into Supersource, but that's not true, because if you remember, I have input number 3 and 4 assigned to 2 inputs in my new Extreme ISO. So all of those inputs are alive and active by using that matrix, and I can do a quick change on whatever's in input number 3 by just using the matrix on the front of the other device. So that to me is super, super cool because it gives me a lot of control that I would not normally have. I'm just switching back over to the right control software here to drop another slide in for you. So again, here they are side by side. Here's it up close to the new Extreme ISO, and you can see I have my Apple TV camera 3. I have split this camera that I'm in right now so that I can bring it in. That's why I've lost another input. But again, I want it there in case ATEM number 1 ever dies. I could still do a consult real quickly or get on Zoom. I still have to hook up a USB-C cable, USB-A to USB-C into my PC so I can go into Zoom from my PC, or I can go into Zoom from ATEM Extreme ISO number 1 from my laptop, which I do all the time. And so then next to that, you have the switch that switches between my streaming bridge and my program in. And the reason I have program coming in is that I could choose that, and I'll do it right now. And program is live. I'll demo that here real quick. Let's see. Apple TV, are you still in input number 3? Let's fix that. Output number 2 file. Yeah. So Apple TV is input number 4 here. And you can see I have this switch left, and it's the ATEM input number 4, and I have it on program. So I could make program live, which it is right now, and that's what would be streaming if I went live from the software. So I could be streaming to a different location, and they would be seeing the same thing you're seeing because I have program selected, which makes it live, and then I'd have to go live by going on the air and having it streaming to a location like Facebook or someplace like that. So it gives me the ability to have a B stream, even though I don't know if I have enough bandwidth to have 2 streams going at the same time. I am going to do a test to stream to Facebook, have program active so they can see everything you're seeing. And remember, because I'm doing all the switching from the 2 matrix, right? I'm not going to be changing what's on program from my new Extreme ISO number 2, which is really cool because technically it has 3 inputs, one that you can make live or send to a streaming bridge, to some streaming location, even to someone else's live stream. I could be sending the program to them as well. And then I also could be having 2 separate outputs, HDMI, coming into my Extreme ISO number 1, and I can be using those at will. Now, keep in mind, if I use Supersource or I use any of my keys, they would go on the air as well over program in that device. So, okay, let's take a break because I want to talk about how I'm able to do fill and key from my HyperDeck Mini from the other Extreme into my live show. We'll talk about how to do that. We're going to take a little break here from talking about the Extreme. And I've been showing you pictures most of the night. This is the real live view. Got this crazy microphone in the way, so I'll get it out of the way here a little bit. But there they are side by side. They're within reach, so I can adjust this matrix if I wanted to change what's coming in to program 1, which is channel 3, and this extreme. So I can control that, but I got to go into software to control what's coming in to channel 4. And you can see 4 is ready right now. But I'm in Supersource bringing in a camera from my other extreme ISO. So this is actually coming into the live stream right now because I have this window next to me using this extreme input number 2. So Supersource gives me the ability to put 4 things on the air. And so I can choose 2 things all the time from my other device, and that really gets rid of all of the switching these back and forth, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. So see all the labels: Apple TV, camera 3. I have camera 2 duplicated, and it's through a splitter, and it comes here and comes here. Then I have the only switch that's still happening, and that's the bridge or program. Program's live right now, even though it's not coming in anywhere. I could replace it to this right now, what you're seeing in that window, if I wanted to, just by changing the matrix to program from that input coming out of this device. Then I have multi-view. It's always coming into this device, and that's multi-view from this. So if I'm training and I want to show the multi-view, I can do that by just looping it back through one of these 2 channels. And then I have my HyperDeck Shuttle, and then I have my HyperDeck Mini coming in right here. Now these 2, channel 7 and 8, because my HyperDeck is coming in there, I can assign that 7 and 8 to these 2 channels, and then I can go into a key in this Extreme ISO and choose Extreme 1 as the fill and Extreme 2 as the key. And what I'm doing is I'm looping these right back in. So I can bring my HyperDeck live by using these in my keys. Hope that makes sense, because I'm going to show you now. So let's switch what's in input number 2. I'm going to go back to my laptop, and let's go to here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and do it manually. So I'm going to change over to connections. I'm in that device. I'm going to go to output 1, and I'm going to choose fill. I'm going to go to output 2 and choose key. Now that's been assigned to channel 3 and 4 of my main ATEM Extreme ISO. So we're going to go over into that software, go to connections, go to the original one. And so now these 2 channels right here are my HyperDeck, right? And I could show you one of those by just bringing it into Supersource. So let's just go to box 2, and I'll choose, and there you go. You have my my transition. So that's my stinger, and I can also, and then there's the fill source. Now, if I want to show you the key source, I just have to switch that to extreme input number 2, and there's the fill source. And it's just a cutout. And if I go back and show you my stinger, come on. 2 clicks. There you go. That's what it looks like. It's just a big cutout. And so those 2 inputs are now coming in, but I can't show you them at the same time. Now I could have a 4-box layout, and I could have the fill on the top and the stinger on the bottom. So if I go to a 4-box layout like that, and I'll change what's in those inputs. So we're going to go to input 3, and we're going to make it extreme output number 2. And so there you go. And if I hit play, you have fill twice and you have key once. So, because I have it assigned. Really in camera 1, I really want my 5D Mark IV. And then let's just say I want to go to that's probably box number 3, actually, I think. And let's make it my laptop. So now you have key and fill on the bottom, and I can make that play on my show by assigning it to a key. So I already have it assigned to my downstream key. So if I was to turn on my downstream key, I'll show that to you first. So let's go back to me and my laptop. So if I go to my downstream key, number 2, I have my HyperDeck assigned right here, and that's my main HyperDeck. But what if I wanted to change that now and play from my other HyperDeck from my new Extreme ISO? I just change these inputs to Extreme Out 1 and Extreme Out 2. It's pre-multiplied. I'll put it on the air. And there you go. Now you have my subscribe logo on the air. That's the end of it. If I just hit the back arrow, it will start all over again. And if I want to cover the screen with my stinger, and if I turn the audio on, I could play audio as well. Right now, I'm just demoing this. I didn't want audio. So I'm going to put that back to my HyperDeck. So my HyperDeck is what's planning to play there. Turn that key off the air so you don't see all that craziness. And that's how I can bring my HyperDeck on the air. I can also bring my Shuttle in. So if I go up here and change connections, go to ISO number 2. And if I just want to bring my Shuttle on the air, I'll switch input number 2 to my Shuttle. And then we'll assign it right up here to Supersource. And there you go. I have my Shuttle on the air. I can turn the logo off the air. So all you're doing that, and I can scroll forward and back in that device. I could also bring it into a Supersource. Now that it is assigned coming in to channel 4 from in my main Extreme ISO, then I have what I need to show it on the air. So again, it would be a lot easier to have a rack mounted device, but there you have it. I'm integrating 2 Extreme ISOs. I'm learning more and more about it every day. I'm excited about being able to put 8 boxes on the screen at the same time, 2 Supersources, and seeing how that would work. It would be crazy because I haven't tried it yet, but I can bring in the DVEs, the picture-in-pictures from both Stream Decks and put them on with backgrounds and borders. And that's something I'm going to illustrate next week in our live stream. So I'll put 4 boxes on the air with that background behind me and have borders as well as backgrounds. And that's pretty exciting. And I'll do that by using the 4 DVEs, 2 from the new Extreme ISO and 2 from my original Extreme ISO, because you have 4 boxes that you can do backgrounds on or shadow on or borders. So that's pretty exciting as well. So crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. So let me rearrange things here. And hopefully I've covered most of this. I'm going to take some questions now, see if you guys have any that I need to answer. Hopefully it's not too mind-blowing, but let's just go here through the chat. That's a great question, Tony. I will use this when I'm on with a client. Every day I'm on with a client, training them how to use the Extreme ISO. I will be probably demoing this and think about it. So one of the things I'm going to be able to do is integrate it so that I can bring in the ATEM Mini Pro if I'm training on the Pro. So once I get Studio B set up, I could possibly just go out there and demo it and be able to share the multi-view and all of that. And I'm working out the details of that. But pretty much I'm using it a lot. I love having my laptop and my PC available so I can demo things. So it's nice to have, to be able to have a like OBS open on my laptop and be over on my PC in a 4-box showing them how to set up YouTube to get ready to stream. Because I do a lot of my consulting is teaching people how to live stream. I teach them how to use OBS to make intro reels, use the countdown clock. And when I'm live, it's really hard because my laptop is looking at YouTube. My monitor here is looking at the chat. So I don't have to look at those two screens when I'm doing a consult. So that's a big relief. And then I have to be able to monitor now two control software. So on the left, I have OBS open for chat as well as my Skycam. And yes, I still have my Skycam. So I could simply change from chat to the Skycam. Did it go dead here? Skycam on the air. So I could change from chat to Skycam and go to different locations that I have pre-programmed in the studio. I can also manually move it using Alt and the arrows. I can use Alt plus and minus to zoom in and zoom out. So it's a great tool. And so I'll use that to show things in my studio. Like, you know, right now it's showing my desk. So I can, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger right now so I can see it. So I can zoom in closer to my desk. That's my head. But so if I needed to get this view right here to show my BenQ or show this view right there, then I can just adjust. And I would do presets normally, Tony, to have this ready. And here's the presets I have tonight. That's one. There's 6 possibilities. That's one. That's one. That is one. And I didn't have a still image really conducive tonight to show my Skycam. But again, to be able to show things to people, it's really important. And now I can bring that in on my PC through my main ATEM because I've moved the HyperDeck over, and that's really nice because I can be doing this at the same time, and it's a lot easier. And Freddie actually said something to me a while back about how it seems to be hard to switch between that and chat because I have to look over to the monitor that has OBS open, and I've got to turn Skycam off and chat on the air and then hit the transition bar, and now your chat comes back up on the air. Now, the PC, I'm sharing no screens. So OBS lets you cast to a screen. But my laptop, I'm duplicating one screen so I can show you guys things. So that's the disadvantage of having chat open because my PC, I can't share my PC screen. That's why you saw me changing control software from right here because I can't show you my PC. I have the control software opened on my PC, but I don't have any of my PC screens shared. I'm only casting from OBS directly to my ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. but that's why I was going up here and changing connections so I could show you both software. So this is the control software for my new Extreme ISO, and I've relabeled these, and you do that right down here under the label. So you go into labels, you can change this label and this label right here. You have output labels. So all of that's available right there. And I can switch software and demo this to clients from my laptop. But for a live stream, I like to have both softwares open because it's faster to look over and see if I have a key on by accident on my other ATEM. So we'll go back to the original control software, cut back to me and the logo. So hopefully that answers your question. And then I usually have the control software over on my BenQ drug over so I can have my laptop open just to watch the streaming health. And again, there's more screens that you have to be observing when you're live streaming. That's just the way it is. So it's like a control room. When you're live streaming, you want to have the chat somewhere. You want to have your streaming health somewhere. You want to be able to see how your recording's happening on multi-view. I need to have the control software open, OBS open on a screen, and also be able to see what's queued up on my HyperDeck on a bigger screen than that little baby one that you can see comes on the HyperDecks, which are way too small. So that's my response to that. Okay, let me turn chat back on here. Yeah, that's the goal, Joe. I would really like to, and here's what I think I shared this in email to you, I think. Maybe it was to Jay, because I sent you guys a preliminary still image. This is the most recent still image without all the details in it. And I'll have a link to that to download that still image tonight if you guys would like to download it and look at it closer. But my son has cable coming into the house. Our house has cable. I'm using a microwave system for my live streams and for my internet. The guy that's doing that for me has rerouted some pass-through stuff for me, and I'm going to pretty soon have 2 terabyte upload speeds. So you wonder why I'm keeping that. My son has cable, so I could use that as a secondary stream, and I can hook that into my Unify network as a backup fail-safe. But I don't know that I'm going to hook it up completely separate to have a second network unless I set that up. And so we'll see. But that would let me go one stream through cable and then one through my Unify system, which is going to a wireless transmitter on the back of my house that goes up to Country Mercantile, which is about, I don't know, 800 yards, maybe 1,200 yards away. And then that then goes up on a mountain behind my house. And I'll take some video footage of that and show you guys that. So microwave from my house to Country Mercantile, from Mercantile top up to the mountain. The mountain is where all of the main signal comes in. And this is a separate network. A friend of mine who runs it, he has about 35 or 40 clients is all. He installed it because he didn't have any internet at all in a new development. And we heard about it and met him. And both my mom next door and I use his system. Now it does drop some packets. So if you're a gamer, you might get some mouse glitches. But for really what I do, I've never really had much of an issue ever. And now that he's going to get rid of some of these pass-throughs to other houses, I will have less interference and more consistent speeds, but I don't have any trouble streaming. I did a couple weeks ago, but that was mainly why he's moving some of that off of my network. So hopefully that's a good response to that. Yeah. I hear you, Tony. Let me get this up here. Doing all that, managing my stream and running 2 ATEMs. But again, as soon as I have this down pat, right, I get a chance to work with it all the time. It's not an issue. Typically, I'm going to start any consult with whatever 2 inputs I know I'm going to need. And then if I need to, I can change it. It's not that complicated. It'll get complicated if I start using Supersource. It'll get complicated if I start using the keys from that device. But again, I have the same still images loaded up that I need for that. So if I go into, just to show you this real quick, if I go in here real quick, here's all the still images I have tonight. So I could do this slideshow, and then my main still image, my logo here, and my background for Supersource, which is almost always loaded by default. But if I go over to my new Extreme ISO, number 2, connect to it. I have the same logo ready and the same background logo, so I could go in here into the switcher, into Supersource, and right now box 1. So if I clicked on Supersource right now, it would make it live in the program. This would be preview, and I'm not going to bring preview in right now. I just have to change it in the matrix. But if I went into Supersource, I could create a layout and then bring that on the air, and then use program out up here instead of the outputs. So instead of choosing a output from one of the inputs, I would just use program, and then Supersource, once I make it live, would be live. And so it's not that complicated. So it's really having this as a backup. So the way I look at it, let's say that all of a sudden my original ATEM Extreme dies. I have a backup that I could literally go live with that same day. This camera is going into it through a splitter. So there's some huge advantages. I wouldn't have my laptop or my PC in currently. So remember, I do have some switches. So who knows? I may have to have a backup switch so I could choose between laptop and PC and then have it ready to plug in if I ever had that problem. But right now I'm retiring 5 switches, and I'm super excited about doing that and not having to use those anymore. So as long as I have those available to me, then I can either stream from it by keeping things set to program and only using the matrix to a second location. I could also use it as a backup stream, which I am going to do a couple test streams to use that as a backup. So if the first stream fails, that's the second stream. But again, it makes not a lot of sense because it's all on the same internet going out of my house. So if one fails, they would probably actually both fail. Who knows if that's true or not? But turn your chat back on the air here. Uh-oh. Let's make sure I'm in the right unit. I just turned a key on the new device. I don't want to do that. I want to turn a key on in this device. So thanks for that comment, Tony. No, Wacom is staying on the desk. Probably going to get a second one for Studio B. Just got home, checking in. I will reply ASAP, Hank. Yeah, so got a chance to do a little FaceTime with Hank, so that was a lot of fun. So it's good to have you in here tonight. Freddie says hi. Yeah, whatever that stands for, Tony. My friend runs his own network. He buys from internet sources, and then originally it was just for his house. So he put a microwave tower up on the mountain down to the Country Mercantile, and that shot across the highway to his house. And so I will show you guys some video footage of that plan across the 4-lane highway. I'm on the Country Mercantile side of the highway, and he's in a development that's older on the other side. And I think he was trying to get 1 or 2 clients in this development. So he happened to knock on my mother-in-law's door, and then I met him, and we're good friends now, and absolutely have a blast hanging out with IT people. So he's my local IT guy, and then I have some guys on here as well. Yeah, so 2 terabytes would be pretty awesome. I have him throttle me. Tuesday nights, it's set not to throttle me as much, but I don't want to take up all his bandwidth or see mine fluctuate a lot. So we've set it up so Tuesday nights, I have way, way more than I need. And he told me he was working on things that Tuesday when we were having issues live. So I was dropping some frames that night. Can't wait, Hank, to hear that story that you have to tell me. Wireless internet service provider. Yeah, I just learned some slang, right? WISP, W-I-S-P. That is a wireless internet service provider. See how smart I've become? I got good mentors. Yeah, I have talked to Mark about coming on the channel. He's not really a that kind of guy, but he has worked with some major companies. He cut his teeth in government systems and has moved into the private sector, and he travels all over the Northwest working for a lot of government clients. And we had a conversation recently about just dealing with clients. I had a client experience last year. He had a similar client experience. We were sitting and talking about that. He was actually here this week to help me deal with a couple issues in my wife's business. And it was just interesting to, as we were waiting for some software to download, we were sharing stories just about dealing with clients and how you say, okay, here's what I'm recommending. And then they go, well, let's just do it this way. Are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure? And we were talking about how we will ask over and over again, do you understand that down the road? Yeah, I'm sure. And we're like going, and inevitably down the road, they can't get done what they need to get done. And then we're getting a call again. And I don't want those kind of clients personally. I want clients that I can grow to a place and then they go on their own and they're doing great. And then if I stay ahead of them in knowledge in certain areas and they want to invite me back again and we learn that and they go forward, I'm all into that. But I stay away as from as many clients as I can that are the ones that I make a recommendation and they decide to go a complete different route or go a cheap route just because I can. And I don't really want to try to problem solve equipment that I would never have recommended. Now, if it's plan A, plan B, plan C, I create plan A, plan B, plan C, so you can grow to it. So you may have to replace something to get a bigger switcher, but the other devices, the HyperDecks, the converters, the streaming bridge, right? All of that's going to work with whatever they change their main switcher to. And so that's happened for me. I changed from an ATEM Mini Pro to an Extreme. Everything went great. I was able to bring in more inputs, add more switches, and now I've got rid of switches because now I have integrated 2 Extreme ISOs, and I don't know anybody else that's doing that. So, okay. Freddie likes that idea, TVJ, and I will talk to him about inviting him in here. I want to wrap things up tonight real quickly by saying this. Shannon and I have kind of decided that we are staying in this house. My mother-in-law still has some tests done. We'll just see how that goes. But again, Studio B is not just because I may have to do something in the family situation, moving people in, but it really was the ability to work with Dominic and my son Christopher and do some projects that I could bring into my lives and go into Studio B real quickly in a live stream and show you guys what's happening, give you an update instead of showing you a video, but actually being there live, actually have Dominic, my grandson, or maybe Christopher, my son, who's actually outside tonight, and actually have them join me when we're working on a project or something like that, or talking about some of their passions. Like my son's a guitar player and Dominic has other passions besides Batman and superheroes. So I thought it'd be really cool to bring some of those people like Mark on my show, have a set in Studio B that I could just go out to, because this room really needs to be a Studio A and kind of a man cave. And I gave up the man cave to make it a studio, and we're not doing a lot of shooting back here. So I'm really debating about what I'm going to do in this room. I even talked to Freddie in an email this week about flipping everything around, putting my desk in that corner, and making this closet that my desk is in a giant, beautiful shelf setup. My cases could be up on the top behind kind of a curtain, so you couldn't see that, and then have some really nice lit shelves here, because I'm running out of shelf space in here, and I like to put some of my hobbies on the shelf. And then I would be in that corner shooting this direction. And then that window would be right there by my desk, so I could look out the window when I'm working. And I will still have to solve soundproofing and the light issues and all of that. I already have that window tinted so that it's never super bright. I probably would go to a darker tint if I do move my desk over there. So lots of ideas with Studio A, but also what I want to do with Studio B, and I don't plan on going anywhere soon. And I really want to continue to expand what my live stream looks like. I believe that, like, Aaron Parecki is kind of going towards one direction. Mark Barker is kind of going to a new studio and a direction. And I kind of like this direction where I'm integrating some of these devices. And so I just want to kind of stay with that direction and then add the twist to my live streams. I'm also getting ready, just so you know, almost thought about doing it tonight as a post show, but I knew I'd need more time tonight. But I want to do some 20-minute shorts on how to use the Extreme. I do have a beginner's guide here to the ATEM Mini Pro, but I really want to break down how to use the Extreme and some positive things about that device, and talk about the differences between an Extreme HDMI, ISO, and a regular Extreme, then the new SDI version, because there are some differences there. Again, so you do have more outputs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm planning on doing kind of a 20-minute video each week, and it may be live. I might record it and then do it as a video that rolls right after I go off the air. I haven't decided yet, but that's coming up very soon, so I wanted to announce that. So any other questions about the technology that I have in here about the integrating two Stream Decks? I would love to answer those before we go tonight. So I'll wait for that because I know there's a delay. It's going back through here. Earlier, Tony asked this. Hey, Keith, just curious to what brand studio monitors are used. I'm using some JBL. These are actually studio quality monitors. I can't remember the model number. They're old now. I bought the two studio monitors used and the subwoofer brand new. So I come out of the Rodecaster Pro into my Hostess switch. I can make that live here because I'm still live. So let's do a real quick, go me and my laptop, and I'm just going to change what's in input number 2. And then I have to switch this as well. Welcome to my world, my new toys. Let's just do this. I've got this open. I'm just going to move chat down here for a minute. Output number 2. I want to go to Apple TV. Okay. So out of my 2 outputs of my Rodecaster Pro version 2, I go into this Hostess switch, and you can see it has 3 outputs. Kind of see it. There we go. So one goes to my JBL speakers, and there is speaker number 1, and there is speaker number 2, and it's easy to find on social media because these are 6s. They come in 6s or 8s, and it comes with this JBL controller. And again, it's old school. I can I never take this down. This is actually comes off. It's the battery compartment, so I'll fix that later. And then, sorry for making you guys dizzy, there's the subwoofer on the floor. So the way the audio works, it goes to the subwoofer and then from the subwoofer over to the speakers. It's called a crossover. So I can actually adjust on here how much of the bass I want to go through these two stereo speakers and how much bass I want to go through the bass or the subwoofer. And when you're recording music, the reason that's important is when you're referencing the bass and mixing bass, sometimes you want to hear all just bass. I don't want to hear any of the highs or the mids. And so I'll change the crossover so most of what's in the low bass, the kick drum, all of that, the bass guitar is coming through here. And I can really see how loud it is, what the RMS levels are. And I know this is way above some people, but when you're mixing music and mastering music, you really need to get control of the bass. And also your room sometimes develops a lot of bass. So I'll use my headphones. I'll also use bass in these speakers because typically they're pointing a different direction. So I may change the crossover and put all of the bass in these speakers. But obviously, this subwoofer gives me really, really good low end, and that's why I have that set of speakers. And I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I'm notoriously that way. Sorry. So, and I missed that earlier. So thank you for asking that. I just don't want to miss any of these before we roll out tonight. Again, I said hi to Hank, who's in tonight. It's good to have you. I don't think I missed anybody else. Freddie is saying, I don't have more questions. Great stream tonight, Keith. Thank you for all the hard work and the attention to detail you always do on Tuesday. Yeah. Megan Trainor, it's all about the bass, She writes songs that get stuck in your head. My wife was singing a Trainor song last week. Yeah, when I get into Studio B, Jay, I will definitely be creating a sound studio. So I walked away from a lot of that, but it comes up every so often. So having a treated room, which would be Studio B, the garage, will be pretty important. So there's a number of ways to do it and cut some corners. The one thing I probably will not do, and I'm leaning towards doing it right now, 60-40, would be lifting the floor, because a lot of sub frequencies like diesel trucks pulling into my driveway or going down the road could be a huge issue. And so it's a concrete floor, right? It's a slab in my garage. So technically lifting it would be pretty crucial, but it's a lot of money if you think about it. You can also buy pads, like rubber pads, and put them down. So you could do like a layer of thin rubber and then put something like a thin fabric pad, like which would be in these sound blankets. And then you could do another layer of flooring, like a lot of people will put in their garages. But again, it's very expensive. So you're talking about $2,000 to do a good job there. I could probably lift the floor in that garage for somewhere under $2,000. But buying the isolation brackets, because they're brackets that literally sit on the concrete floor, and isolate. Then it has a peg, and then that holds the trusses. And there's lots of different versions of those isolation brackets, and it would be fun to do a whole stream about that. Yeah, I put a low cut filter on almost all of my video edits. Sometimes I forget. I have a low cut filter on tonight. So all of my live streams have a low cut filter. Again, if someone drives by, and that's the street right out there. So, and actually this bedroom I'm in is about 3 feet away from the street, and like probably 9 feet away from my driveway. So this is not a slab. I have a basement that I'm on. So this room is a lot better for sound than Studio B. So that's what I'm debating. Do I really want to invest the money into Studio B because it's so close to the street, so close to my driveway? And my wife has clients in trucks coming in the driveway all the time. Now, we could limit them to park in front of the house, not in the driveway. But again, that just takes one more parking place away from her clients. And occasionally her appointments get overlapped and we need that extra parking space, especially if one of my kids is here or one of my neighbors parks in front of the house, which happens quite frequently, but we've got them trained mostly. No Ratso next week. I'm taking a break from bringing Ratso on the live streams because my extra energy and focus has been in integrating these two devices, and I still have some work to do. But Ratso will be making an appearance someday soon, FYI. Yeah, TLM 103 is a great microphone. I had a U87 in my studio, which is a Neumann famous vocal mic. So Neumann is probably one of the best ever manufacturers of microphones. I also had a AKG microphone. I have some Rode condenser microphones, both a small condenser microphone by Rode, which is sounds really good on guitar. It's a little bright, so it really sounds good on like a bowl, like a real dark koa wood bowl. It brightens it up a little bit. You could use it for the neck of an acoustic guitar. So you could probably use it as an overhead if you wanted to, over like a trumpet or something like that, because it's already bright. Obviously, you could EQ out some of that brightness. And I also have some other microphones. Most of my studio microphones I sold and replaced them with either dynamic microphones. My U87 paid for one of my cameras when I sold it. I think I bought my Canon 5D Mark IV with my Neumann U87 money. And that's the camera you guys watch every week. So it's a good thing that I purchased that camera. And then my EOS R I bought later on with more money. So Tony, Freddie says, Ratso, please. If I had a basement, I would. I don't have a basement. We have an upper level bonus room over the garage that my wife uses. So it's up a stairway right up out of my entryway of my house. And that's a bonus room. It's about the same size approximately, I think, of Tony's bonus room. So it has a bathroom though in it. So we did put a doorway and a bathroom, and it kind of has a coffee area when you come up the stairs. So if we hadn't put that bathroom up there or put that entryway in or that extra door, then it's probably very similar to the size of Tony's studio. So go over to Tony at Quick Tech Solutions and check out his channel. If you go back a ways, he has a video of him building his house and that studio. So that's a shout out to Tony. No, I'm actually, most of the things I upload is at -19. I think YouTube, at least the last time I did the research, I think you can go like -16, -17. But I don't really like anything that loud, that I think is ridiculously loud. So I usually will upload most of my videos at -19. I have a limiter for my live set at -12. I rarely ever see any red. So we should be fine there. But if I ever do get red, it's going to push it back down. But yeah, Facebook has its own levels, and YouTube has its own levels. And you really get, if you can get it exact, then you get the audio that you heard when you rendered it. If you don't get it exact, they're either making it louder or compressing it down, limiting it down. So it is good to get as close as you can to whatever they post as the right levels. But -14 is pretty crazy loud. And that is, so there's a difference between having something at -12 as you're talking live and then having a overall loudness of -14. And that's what that would mean. Overall loudness from beginning to the end of your stream would be about -14. And that's pretty loud because it's going to bring up all the quiet points, bring down all the loud points. And so overall, listening to that at -14 for the whole stream, if it's over an hour long, like this is almost 2 hours right now, it would just blow your ears out. Your ears just get tired if you have headphones on. So I always tell people, if you can, unless you're like competing on the radio with a mastered track, like a single, then yeah, you want to get it pretty loud to compete with all the other songs on the radio. But when it comes to live streaming, use some lenience there, and don't expect that you have to get right on the nose. Just get it loud enough so people can hear it in their speakers or on their phone or in their car, wherever they're listening to you live. Okay, let's wrap this up. So Joe says, you had a U87? That's awesome. Yeah, that was one of the major vocal mics. I had a 414 by AKG. That was another vocal mic that we used. Later on, added a SM7B, which Michael Jackson used on the Thriller album. A lot of people love that dynamic microphone. It's right here. It sounds pretty good recorded as well. What I really liked about the U87, Jay, is that it literally, not Jay, Joe, man, forgot you for a half a second. I apologize. Something happens to that Neumann U87. It has like a built-in boost in the mid-range. I can't even explain it. That's what makes it really cut through on a track. When you have all the instruments and they're all fighting for those mid frequencies, that Neumann just seems to come through like no other microphone. I've heard that about the TLM 107. Not quite as powerful as a U87, not near as expensive as the U87, but a nice sounding condenser microphone. So if you can get your hands on a TLM 107, grab it. It's a great microphone. They also have a podcasting mic as well. Brock Heward from Brock and Salk, a Seattle couple of guys. Brock Heward was a backup quarterback for the Seahawks a long time ago. He and Salk have a radio show, sports show, and they both tried it in their studio, I think, but they've stuck with the Electro Voice microphones. I prefer the SM7B on my voice over the Electro Voice microphones. Okay, Neumann's mics are expensive. I agree. Thanks for the shout out. You're welcome, Tony. I heard Stern uses the Neumann TLM 103, useful for radio. Yeah, it's a great microphone. It's going to sound better than this. But remember, it's also a condenser microphone. So condensers really will bring in the background noise. And I like dynamic microphones. They're not quite as sensitive, so they do have to be closer to you. Condensers are going to pick up more of the noise because they are phantom powered. And that means that you got to send voltage to it from whatever your device is. And that makes them pick up that sound. Now, if you're trying to get, brushes on a snare drum, then yeah, condenser overheads are really going to let you mix that into a track. You're going to get some sheen out of cymbals that you would not normally get out of a dynamic microphone. So you'll see a lot of dynamic microphones on toms or on amplifiers, and you'll see a lot of overhead microphones, condenser, stereo, either pencil condensers or regular microphones. I know many albums were produced with drums having two Neumann U87s in stereo over top of the drum set, so they could mix in all the drums later to just give you that extra clarity when the drums need to have clarity. So anything over -14, YouTube will compress down. That is true. And yeah, I don't like what YouTube has done to audio either, Jay. Again, when you're in the audiophile world, it's completely different than when you're putting videos up in a major database for YouTube. People are not listening with, $2,000, $3,000 speakers. Now, I can be really critical because my JBLs really will let me know what things sound like when I want to, and I can really listen in. I have headphones like these M50s are very transparent, and I can hold my hands like this and I get more bass frequency. There's a lot of tricks to these. I also have Audio Technica pair in the studio somewhere because they have a little different sound, and I wanted to listen to the masters on different type of speakers, and so headphones do that. In my studio, I had Wharfdales, which actually have a little bit of EQ like you would find in a home stereo system. So I would A/B those. That's when I first used the Hosa switch. I would go between my JBLs and go to my Wharfdales, and then number 3 was my subwoofer. So I could just listen to my subwoofer by switching it, and I didn't have to grab my remote control. I could just reach over and switch my Hosa. So I was constantly going from Wharfdales, JBLs, sub only. And then I can use the remote control to change the crossover point. And that's just where the crossover point is between the bass on my speakers and the bass on my subwoofer. So more or less in the sub, more or less inside the studio speakers. So, because they have sub vents as well in them. And again, they throw into the back and they can throw into the corners, and it's not the greatest mix of sub frequencies that you want because sub builds in corners. So you're much better off getting up and standing and listening to your mix from your subwoofer in the best spot in the room when you're doing a master to really know what your bass is doing. So, okay. When the phone rings or I change sources, I have to turn it way down. Yeah, minus 23 is, I think, the television standard. Minus 12 is what we're going to record at, which, again, there's a difference between recording at minus 12 and then, mastering the whole sound to a certain minus overall level, which is different. Again, remember, a slider could be at minus 12. That's one track, one microphone coming in. If you looked at all of the microphones and everything together, then you're going to have an overall level coming out of your mains, right? And then also when you master, right, when you render something in Adobe Premiere or in After Effects, or you're going to render it in DaVinci Resolve, all of those softwares, Adobe Audition, as you render that, you can actually then set it to get the overall level of that track to a certain level for TV. So if I was doing a commercial for something that was going to go on TV, I am going to master it at the levels required by that. And usually my clients, when I was doing that, would send me their specs and say, Keith, this is what we want. And rock bands wanted a different level of loudness than a pop artist or a folk artist or a rap artist. And so, again, all of those levels are different because the competitiveness of that music is different and what the expectations are. And loud isn't necessarily, compressed isn't necessarily better, as you guys probably all know. Yeah, I did, Joe. I'm sorry. Yeah, the RE20. Thank you for that, Joe. That's what I think both Brock and Salk are using the RE20. And I really debated about getting the RE20. Minus 24 is common. Minus 23 is standard. Again, trying to stay just a little bit softer than everybody else. Broadcast, at one point, broadcast was minus 20. I think what people are learning is once you go to phone and go to YouTube and go to car stereos and you go to house stereos, things changed. Remember the Walkman days? They were actually rendering those media files so low resolution that it was just horrible when you listen to it on really good speakers. So there's all kinds of resolutions, and the audiophiles listen to all of their music as a WAV file. They don't use any compression. They're not going to use an MP3 compressed file to listen to. Audiophiles are going to have it on a disc. Everything's going to be a WAV file. After it's been mastered, WAV, all the information's there, and they're going to be able to hear everything on their speakers, and they would laugh at playing an MP3 in their studio. They're also going to have record players. They're also going to have ADATs. They're also going to have some of the highest end converters that money can buy, and a converter takes what's analog to digital and from what's digital to analog, because that has to be converted into the computer world from the analog world. So again, I'll try not to wax on anymore. You can tell I'm passionate about audio, but I don't talk a lot about it on the channel. But if you want to talk one night just about audio, about rendering files in Adobe Audition, doing a MP3 in Adobe Auditions and the best settings, doing a wave mix, a master of a track, even though I don't really have my software on my laptop, it's on my PC, where I used to do my mastering right here in the studio. So, okay, well, we talked about the Studio B. So hopefully this spring, Shannon and I are going to get going on that. We still have some decisions to make. I've integrated 2 extreme ISOs. I'm not going to do any more dedicated live streams on those 2 devices specifically. Next week, I have some other ideas for my live show. I do want to get that 4th video out this week on the Stream Deck Plus. It's a great device, and you can use it with Wavelength software now, so you can control all your levels. You can control zoom if you're doing everything computer-based. So if you like to use Wavelength software, you have one of the USB mics in your studio, you can even use that with Wavelength software now. And if you buy the Stream Deck Plus, you are allowed to download the Wavelength software, and they're doing more and more integration with the Stream Deck. There's some great plugins for the Stream Deck Plus now to give you the control of After Effects, control of Adobe, DaVinci Resolve. So we want to talk a lot more about what you can do now with the new Stream Deck Plus in the near future, because I just think it's a game changer for the Stream Decks, because they haven't had knobs before, push button knobs, or I call them both knobs and dials. Either one is appropriate. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. How's the channel prep coming along? Are you making any progress towards launch? That's Tony for Freddie. So Freddie, yeah, give us an update tonight. Yeah, I've actually thought about 4 PCs in this studio. Just so you know, I have 2, my son's old computer I'm going to buy from him. It's in the garage. I have my other PC in the garage. I also have an older laptop that I could use specifically for a Stream Deck. So I have 3 more PCs in my repertoire. One I need to buy from my son. He has a Keylight Air in his studio. I bought him a second one. He doesn't really use it, and so I'm going to buy that from him as well. So I'll be adding an Air and one of my another one of these Nice Photo softboxes, as well as another Godox UL150 in that studio when I get into Studio B. So it'll be a lot of fun. But obviously, when you are live, having the ability to keep a Stream Deck running live, be able to see both control softwares, but I only have one set of hands, so you can only do so much. And right now I am using this mouse for my PC, and I have 2 of these Logitech roller mouses for my laptop, because I use 2 different parts of my desk. So this one's always on the left, and this one's always on the right. So I have 3 mice in here, 2 Stream Decks, 2 Confidence monitors, 2 big monitors in my studio. Plus, I do want to be able to send my multi-view to that big TV there. Right now, I can send my Apple TV over there, and I can also send my Xbox over there. And my Apple TV I can bring in live, but I also want to be able to put multi-view over there through the same cable that goes over there from my Apple TV. So that is going to be a switch. So I can keep multi-view over there all along unless I change it in the matrix. So yeah, more PCs are coming. PCs in Studio B for sure. You should plug the streaming bridge into the TV behind you and stream to that. Yeah, I would, but I don't know yet. I mean, it's not going to help me with multi-view. So yeah, I thought about that, but it doesn't really help me because I can only send it whatever's coming out of the program out of one of these 2 devices. So I could have the program from my new Extreme going there. So I would just split it and send it there. I wouldn't need to. I already have an HDMI under my desk that goes to that TV. Now that TV does have 4 inputs. but they're not behind the TV. They're actually in a box behind the Batman. So it's a Samsung. It has a super small cable, which is basically fiber. And then it has a box that has 4 inputs. And so that box was in my rack. I used to have my NZXT in that rack, 2 interfaces, a compressor, and an EQ, as well as my audio interfaces with 8 channels of audio going in there. And I could do mixing right on that monitor. And then right there on the right where that panel is, behind it's an outlet. That's where my JBL right speaker used to be. And on the other side of that TV, you can see at the very top, right there above my thumb, there's an outlet. That's where my left JBL speaker used to be. And that wall is wired for audio as well. That's where it was in the original man cave photograph. And I used my JBL speakers as one set of speakers in the studio for my man cave. And I also had my Bose surround sound speaker in the studio. So I could A/B audio with Bose. I could do surround sound mixing in this room. And I also could do some really quality stereo mixing in this room with my JBL speakers. So it was quite crazy. Yeah, MixFX is set up to control both ATEMs, so I can just switch which one I'm using, but I can't have them both open at the same time. I'll demo that in weeks to come. Hey, good to have you back, Bill. We're late, yep. Good, I hope you will listen to the whole integration of the 2 extreme ISOs, because it's all set up. And I have some pictures of those things on the live stream. And then I had camera 3 right down on top of them. I showed all that earlier tonight. So there they all in all their glory right here on my desk, and they are all wired together. So thank you for joining me tonight. Yes, I said knobs. I don't have a backup generator, so I don't think there's a backup generator with enough power to power this room. I mean, literally, I've never counted how many things I have plugged in this room. But I did bring in extra power in this room because I knew I was going to be mastering music in here. And so I have to do that now in the garage. And so that's one of the things that I have to do is hire an electrician and create a couple new breakers into the bonus room, and then bring some of the circuits that are in here into the bonus room as well, Studio B, because I will be using those as well for lights when I go into Studio B. So let's see. Freddie says he had a delay for a while, personal reasons. That's the answer to his studio. I do have a mice infestation. Probably do need to get some popcorn to feed the mice. I did think about streaming Bridge in the living room and tested it once so that my family could see me live. I also took it over next door. But when I realized I had to open up the firewall and let my streaming Bridge, my ATEM Mini Pro at that time, stream out, I didn't want to do that. I do not want to create any vulnerability in my network here. And I know there's some high-tech things I can do, but that's way over my head. Yeah, I don't know if you can have 2 MixFX open at the same time, but I was going to say he's written some really cool, what are they called? From Microsoft Windows, they're called shortcuts. There's a shortcut I can switch between in my HyperDeck Shuttle between the disc playing videos back or playing back teleprompter view. I can switch discs with one of those shortcuts in my HyperDecks. I rarely have it open because my iPad has MixFX open all the time. But occasionally, when I'm in my studio, I will open up those shortcuts. They're all set up, and I can switch a lot of things using Windows extensions. And thank you to Adam Tal, the designer of MixFX, for making some of those shortcuts work for Microsoft to solve some of the things you can't do in the control software in MixFX. So you have to have a shortcut to do that, like switching disks You can also switch to like a SSD drive in a HyperDeck. So if you had Disk 1 and Disk 2 in your HyperDeck Plus and you wanted to switch to the SD output, the USB output to an SD drive, you have to have a shortcut to do that because it's not in the code. So ATEM, the HyperDecks don't have a code or a shortcut built into their code to change from the two SD cards in the front. There's 2 slots for these in the front of my HyperDecks, only one in the back of the HyperDeck Shuttle, but in the 2 HyperDecks I have, there's 2 of them. And you can switch between those 2 discs if they're plugged in Mix Effects, but you can't switch from those 2 discs to a USB-C drive, which you can also record to from a HyperDeck, and you can also record to a SSD drive from the Extreme and the Extreme ISO, the ATEM SDI, Extreme, the Extreme Pro, the Extreme Pro ISO, all can record to an SSD drive. Much easier with 2 iPads. And I'll have to send Ratso after the mice. Okay, that's it for me, guys. I am hot. It's hot in here. It's gone up 10 degrees since I went live. I hope you enjoyed me throwing 2 ATEMs together. Extreme ISOs, thank you so much for hitting the like button. If you haven't subscribed and you're listening tonight or you're listening to this later, please consider hitting the subscribe button. The like really helps the algorithm. I do want to grow my channel, and a lot of what I do are these live streams, and there's a lot of energy and time in them, and I thank you for every like. Ring the bell if you really want to know when the next video goes out, and I do have a Stream Deck Part 4 of my Stream Deck Plus series coming out very, very, very soon. I just need to finish editing it, so check that out. And again, thank you so much for the likes. I'm not looking at the likes, but we've had 7 viewers on tonight, 55 views. Average view duration is 17 minutes and 59 seconds, and I can see all of that on YouTube. So thank you again for being a part of Life Journey Production Studios. Thank you for tolerating my craziness and all of this stuff. And cheers and goodbye to all these extra switches from my studio. Some of them will go to Studio B. Some of them will stay in a drawer. Some will go with my mobile traveling device, because I do plan on having everything in Studio B be mobile. So it'll be in the rack that I can actually throw in a car until I buy one that stays permanently. So that's it. I'm Keith. This is Life Journey Production Studios. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And thank you for the compliment. I am very hot physically right now. Thank you, Freddie, and positive thoughts. And thank you. And again, if you are a praying individual, throw some prayers up to my uncle as he is in the throes of his life. And that's something very important to me. And a shout out to that family. We love you. If you guys are listening tonight, God bless you. And you guys have an amazing week. And I hope to see you right here back on Tuesday live at 4 o'clock each week. Until then, peace.